Teaching speaking to English language learners is a highly relevant topic to most teachers today. I will be presenting some of the best practices for teaching speaking. Krashen's theory of comprehensible input may be several years old, but it is highly relevant today. This is the idea that students understand language best and learn it at a +1 level, that is, language that is mostly known by the learner, but may have one or two new vocabulary words or syntactical expressions in it. This is important for teachers to give their students both comprehensible input and opportunities to express comprehensible output. Mustafa also argues that socially aggressive children, that is, those that are eager to interact with their peers, acquire language more quickly than their less social peers. This is because the speech is not only a result of comprehensible input, but it's also a tool for stimulating more comprehensible input. I have seen this to be true both in my own language acquisition and in that of my students. When language learners are eager and ready to engage with their peers, even in challenging situations where they do not understand everything, they are asking for more comprehensible input and they are receiving it, and thus they are acquiring language much more quickly. Language learners also negotiate for meaning. Once learners reach a threshold level of comprehension in the target language, they should be negotiating for meanings with each other, both with their peers that are native speaking and their peers that are fellow English language learners. These negotiations come in the form of clarification requests, such as, "Did you say this?" Confirmation requests, asking for comprehension if they are correct, for repetitions of themselves and of others, and even giving corrective feedback to their peers. Because these are so vital in gaining comprehensible input, these are skills that should be taught explicitly as a way to enable our children to get that input. Teachers should explicitly demonstrate how to negotiate for meaning. And then, once they've explained it to their children and they actually see their children negotiating for meaning, teachers should not intervene in those negotiations. The students should have the opportunity to talk it out themselves and use their language. Part of teaching the children to use those negotiations is by imitation. Students need many receptive language opportunities before expressing that same language. So teachers should repeat the same word, the same phrase, the same sentence several times within context, that is very important, before expecting students to use it. If it is a conversational element, for example, a negotiation for meaning, "What did you say?" then it should be demonstrated in conversation. One great way to demonstrate this is to use a puppet. The teacher can talk to the puppet and the puppet can reply so that the conversation is demonstrated. This is both engaging and practical as the students can see it in the conversation. The teacher can then, after several repetitions of the students receiving the language, move to the expressive language and have the conversation with the student, expecting the student to respond with, "What did you say?" or whatever the phrase is that is being emphasized. Storytelling is another best practice proven for positive results among English language learners. One helpful tool is technology. Students can use animations to help tell their stories. This will help them recall the story as they're telling it and aid their vocabulary acquisition. It's engaging. Students enjoy the activity, which means it has a low effective barrier and there's more likely to be retention because of that. And it has been proven to increase speaking proficiency among English language learners. So teachers should be engaging their students in storytelling activities with multimedia animations. If multimedia is not available, the students can create pictures or use puppets or something to engage the story so that they are not only verbally speaking the story. Discussions are, of course, an important part of all conversational English classes, but these should not be viewed as an easy lesson to prepare. Conversation lessons must be engaging and well planned. And furthermore, the questions need to be relevant to the students. They should be deep. Students should have a vested result, who should have a vested interest in the conversations, and this will result in more language acquisition, as proven by Shahini and Riazi. In Shahini and Riazi's study, they talked about using philosophical questions for college-age students, and how the college-age students that discussed philosophical questions as opposed to generic questions were much more likely to retain and increase their language ability. Of course, when teaching grade school, philosophical questions may not be the most appropriate, but choosing questions that are deep and are important to the students and are not just surface level boring questions is very important for all ages. Finally, there is the ever-present question about grammar, and research is conflicting on this point. However, the consensus is that teachers should focus on the meanings, not the grammar. There are times when teachers should be correcting grammar, but the focus should always be on the meaning. Oh, I understood what you said. Here's a better way to say it. And it's also important that the grammar skills being corrected are targeted. Only one or at the most two skills at a time should be corrected. For example, perhaps with one of our students, we have a continual problem with forgetting the linking verb in a sentence. So that is every time they speak to me and they forget the linking verb, I still acknowledge the meaning of the sentence and interact with them and then say it with the linking verb. But I don't correct every other grammatical error in the sentence. Students in that case would become overwhelmed and lost in the amount of information to retain. So focusing on one or two grammatical skills at a time actually does result in positive syntactical improvements in speaking. Memorized sentence frames are also a proven way to help improve students' grammar. Students can memorize these frames and then use them to state sentences. These will at first just be memorized items individually, and then students over time will begin to replace certain words in them and negotiate meanings further. These are some of the best practices for teaching speaking. We as educators have the privilege of teaching these children how to speak in a new language. We need to steward that well, prepare well, and use these practices and research-proven methods to enable our students to communicate well.